Content and trigger warning: death. In this episode, we discuss a story of unsafe work conditions that led to many deaths.
Yeah, so like you said, it's quite literally propaganda. It's quite literally scared tactics into rejecting ethical treatment,
Yeah.
which is crazy, you know. And it just sucks because a lot of those individuals feel like they don't have anywhere else to go,
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
and they're already being treated like trash. They're already working in horrible conditions, they're already getting paid a pittance, and they want to improve themselves and they can't. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Time to Talk About podcast. My name's Eden, and I'm here with my brother Noble. And today it's time to talk about minimum wage jobs. We're specifically going to hit, the points about the wage itself and how it may or may not be enough, and all the caveats of working minimum wage jobs depending on the demographic that you fall into.
Yeah. This is a topic that we've talking about for a while, so I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, me too. So we live in North Carolina, and the minimum wage here is $7.25 per hour. So we're going to talk specifically within that context, but a lot of the things that we say are somewhat generalizable to other states within the United States that may or may not have similar rates of pay.
Yeah.
So yeah, any other opening comments?
Nope, we can jump right in.
All right. So, like I said, we live in North Carolina, where the minimum wage is $7.25. In my opinion, that is very, very problematic, but we're going to get into that in just a second. I just think that it's really important to highlight that many of your average minimum wage workers, maybe not average, but many of your minimum wage workers are teenagers or like very young adults, like broke college students. And I feel like within that demographic, one of the main problems of working a minimum wage jobs, especially with how grueling they can be, is the lack of respect that those workers may get because they are youth.
Yeah.
Because they are young and they may not have expertise in other areas or careers. They need to make money for one reason or another.
Right.
People in our demographic don't really get respected on a large scale. They get walked over all the time. Now, I'm not saying that every single, minimum wage workplace is like a horrible place to work in.
Right.
But what I am saying is that there are way too many stories out there of people that have been asked to do ridiculous things, or there have been ridiculous expectations because, many of these managers take advantage of the fact that many of us are young and naive and don't necessarily stand up for ourselves, or don't know how to stand up for ourselves, or we don't have the resources to, or whatever reason. So that's definitely a big problem in my opinion.
Yeah, I think ageism plays a big role in the workforce in general, pretty much in every industry, but especially with minimum wage jobs and service jobs and things like that. Ageism has like both sides of the spectrum. There's ageism towards young people, like people who they may feel like are not really experienced, whether it be with that certain job or career or just with life in general. And so at times, workplaces can be demeaning to those people. And then, ageism also exists with much older people who sometimes people feel like they're not able to pick up things as quickly, learn things as quickly on the job, especially when technology is involved. So we can see ageism there a lot as well. So that definitely is a part of it. But obviously, we are talking a lot more about more, I guess, job specific things. With minimum wage work, like the long hours and the low pay. So not all of it is connected with the age of the worker, but whether we're talking about high school and college students or whether we're talking about older adults who are working minimum wage jobs, there's a lot left to be desired, I think, when it comes to the working conditions and just the working laws in general. Like, companies are able to get away with a lot of things in America, I feel like, because there's not a lot of laws that govern them and really force them to do the right thing, which is kind of sad that you know, we have to even say that. But that's the truth. Companies a lot of times can do what they want. And a lot of companies are so big that even if they get in trouble, they just get fined, and the fines aren't that great.
Yeah.
They aren't that heavy that it really hurts the company or anything. They just pay and they keep moving, you know? And another thing too is labor unions. Like a lot of these companies really work hard to prevent their employees from unionizing because labor unions do a lot to help fight for fair working
Labor
conditions,
unions
you know?
hold those businesses accountable in the
Yeah.
way that the government is not necessarily doing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And sort of help filling the gap between the policies and the government regulation and the real life working conditions. So all that definitely plays a role.
Right. Um, but yeah, like you said, like it's not all the problems lie in this specific age
Yeah.
range, right? But I do think it's important to highlight that because depending on who you are, where you're coming from, and you know, your financial situation, the way that you interact with a minimum wage job is going to vary. And
Yeah.
sometimes that does depend on age. And I think that in terms of that, one of the bigger issues surrounding minimum wage jobs is not necessarily found in that first demographic that we were talking about, but rather, people that do it's like problems that confront people that maybe are post grad and do that for a living.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us, that work minimum wage jobs are not necessarily doing that for a living. It might just be like a summer thing, a side hustle thing, but there are people that do that for a living for one reason or another. And there are much bigger problems concerning that are confronting those people. Um, 7.25 being the minimum wage in our state, I think is inherently one of those problems,
Yeah.
you know,
Definitely
because
not a lot of money.
it's definitely not a lot of money. Okay, if you like calculate this, right? Let's say they work a full-time job, so that's like 40 hours a week, right? So
Yes.
$7.25
Times your
cents
40.
times 40, right? Okay. So that's $290 a week.
So just under $300 a
Just
week.
under $300 a week,
That's
okay?
not including taxes.
Okay, that's not including taxes. Do you want to estimate how much taxes are? I don't know.
Um, Let me think. I have no clue how much it would be in from like one paycheck. Let's say maybe like $30.
$30.
We'll just
Okay.
use it for the sake
Like
of
10% ish? I feel like 10% is kind of a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um
No, but I think
well, I know the state tax rate for like selling things is 7%.
oh, it's
So
7%?
obviously that's not the same tax that is taken from your paycheck, but
Yeah,
let's just say 10% for the
for the purposes of this
yeah,
calculation. So,
probably a little more, but
it's probably a little more, maybe a little less, I don't know.
yeah,
But let's 290 minus 29. Okay.
yeah.
So that's $261 a week, right? All right. Now times 4 weeks for a month. Okay. So that's $1,000 for $1,044 per month, right?
Mhm.
How much is rent?
I mean, most places, I just was looking for apartments and just signed a lease. Most places, like though, if you were going to actually rent a whole apartment, you'd be hard pressed to find anything under 1,000. That's like decent.
So you're telling me you're going to spend your entire monthly paycheck
Yeah,
on rent.
pretty
So
much.
you just die. You're not
There's
going to
no
eat,
food, yeah, insurance,
you know?
none of that is even gas for your car, none of that car payments, none of that is even factored in.
Right.
I was gonna look up like NC tax rate.
Yeah.
Let
And
me put salary tax rate.
while you're looking that up, right?
Yeah,
Obviously, some people do earn more than like not obviously you're not going to be earning like not everyone's earning $7.25 per hour. But
5.25%.
okay, so we were definitely a little bit off, but still, right? If we do 5.25, then that's what
Yeah.
290 minus 15, right? Because that's about half. All right,
Mm-hmm.
275 multiply that by 4, $1,100 a month at
Yeah.
very bare minimum wage. Sometimes people
it
earn
says about $15 is the
right.
tax.
Right. Sometimes people earn a little bit more.
Yeah.
Sometimes people earn, I was going to say less, but no, it's either that or a little bit more. And really that is not enough.
275
Yeah.
a week-ish
Yeah.
times 4.
For 1,100.
Yeah,
Right.
1,100. That you're just barely breaking rent, pretty much, for
Barely
a cheap
breaking
grass
rent.
apartment. And here, I think you can find an apartment like in North Carolina.
Yeah.
You could probably find a small, humble apartment for 1,000, even that would be rough
Yeah,
probably.
that would
But
be
like in
rough.
other states like New York, for example,
Mhm.
you not seeing anything
See,
with
but New
1K.
you see New York's minimum wage is a little bit is definitely higher.
That's true. Yeah,
So
obviously
there's
every
that to
state
consider.
has a different minimum wage, but even I think even other states that may have ones that are close, every state is different, and
Mhm.
so the cost of living is different too.
Right. So you can see that, 7, 8, 9, maybe even $10 an hour is not enough for a full life. Like it's not enough to get you by for a full life. And, what about people that have children? You're not
Yeah,
providing for yourself, you're also providing for at least one other mouth. At least.
right.
Come on now.
So no gas, no food for your children.
Right. So, and there are people that are in situations where they work minimum wage jobs and, they don't have extra financial support. That's it.
Yeah,
you know and so whenever people talk about raising the minimum wage, it's not necessarily about, oh, towards the high schoolers and the, early college students that, maybe have financial support from their parents. It's not towards that demographic. It's targeted at the latter demographic that we were just talking about. It's
yeah,
about person A who is a single mom, and unfortunately was not able to finish college because that was also too expensive. See, that's a different conversation.
yeah,
So, you know, raising the minimum wage is not necessarily about like, giving it to people that don't need it. It's more so about the vast amount of people that do work those jobs that do need more money.
yeah.
I think that people are like, oh, they don't work hard enough. Well, first of all, many of these jobs are very, very, very grueling. Have y'all ever worked in a restaurant?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's not it's hard work. You come home and you're
Yeah.
exhausted.
Well,
So
you used to work at Chick-fil-A,
I
so like,
did.
w- uh, give us a little bit of like what was that like in terms of like the workload
Absolutely.
and
So
I guess the busyness of it.
Okay, so I guess I kind of worked a minimum wage job, right? And it wasn't even exactly minimum wage because I got paid $10 an hour,
Yeah.
right? Which was good. And I also had like financial support from my parents because my parents are good people. They're good parents. So like if I needed money, like they weren't just gonna be like, oh, you're working now, so you're on your
Right.
own. Like that, that's crazy. But in terms of like the work, it's pretty hard work. I worked there during the summer and I worked like in the drive-through, and so it's very, very hot, you're sweating and things like that, you
Hmm.
have to make sure that your customers are happy and things like that. Like it's not anyone can do it, as in it's not something that takes, a lot of skill or a lot of brain power, but you get physically tired.
Yeah.
It's definitely grueling.
Well, I think it also depends on what part of it you're working in
That's
and what
true.
industry exactly.
That's
Because
true.
some people have argued recently that certain areas of like fast food, for example, like if you're the one cooking the food, some people have argued that that is skilled labor because you have to learn the skill of cooking the food right.
Personally, I don't
So,
I don't like the term skilled and unskilled labor. I don't like those
well,
terms.
that's what the person was saying, that like a lot of the things that we think of as unskilled labor are
Right.
actually skilled labor.
Right.
So that's the main point I'm making there, that like, you know, there are some things you actually probably do need the skills and not everyone can do. But
Right. Right.
but obviously most companies have at least one type of job that any person can do.
Right.
But
Right.
regardless, most people, whether you're working skilled or unskilled or whatever, you're probably getting paid the same amount that that company pays, the
Right.
same base amount.
Right, right. I think I enjoyed the experience. Like I was very grateful for the experience because imagine trying to go to college and you don't have a cent to your name. Like that's ghetto.
Yeah. Which I
So
think is an important thing to touch on quickly, like,
yeah,
because we've talked about, and I guess we'll talk about later, how a lot of people these days who went to college back in the day feel like, kids now need to be able to work hard to help pay for college and
yeah,
stuff,
we do need to talk about that.
and even if your, parents are paying for or helping you pay for it, you still need spending money. You still need money to buy books
Laundry.
and food and laundry and things day to day. So, when college and high school students are working these jobs, you know, they are working to help pay for college. They may not be paying the actual tuition bill themselves, but they're
Right.
working on a part of it. So to say that like, oh, they don't want to work that hard
Hmm.
to go through college. We did it in the past, but it's like, we are, and the money's still not giving.
The money is literally not giving. Like I mean, I bought all my books this past year, right? And
Yeah,
I'm a
me
STEM
too.
major. We talked about this, so obviously that's going to be very book and program heavy. You're going to spend a lot of money on books, so you
Yeah,
know,
and online
um,
programs.
yeah. But like I said, like I definitely enjoyed working at Chick-fil-A, and it wasn't like it wasn't horrible working conditions. Like
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
good work. It was hard work, but
yeah,
it was good working conditions, you know? I think it was eye-opening because um, I realized that I didn't even have it as hard as other people, like I
for
said,
sure, yeah.
I literally had financial support if I needed it. Like, it's not like I was working for myself and,
Mhm.
like, 2 other mouths as well, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but we're
so
trying to put other people in your shoes, like somebody who has
exactly.
2 kids, for example,
Exactly,
and maybe is
exactly,
even a single parent, putting them in your shoes, like, in that job, you
exactly.
know? It would not be as good for them, honestly.
Right, so I think it gave me, like, an appreciation for people that do work minimum wage jobs for a living, you know?
Mhm.
A good experience, though. I would go back to, I guess, like, remind myself of, like, first of all, $10 an hour for me, like, I'll take it, I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
But I will go back because it really, like, puts things into perspective surrounding this conversation. I
Yeah,
think, like, y'all probably know by now that we are proponents, like, we are definitely proponents for raising the minimum wage
for sure.
at this point, like,
Yes.
come on now. Um, so, yeah. Um, in other states, like we said, the minimum wage may be different. You know, in a lot of states, it is higher than North Carolina's, which
Mhm.
is good, but then you also have to factor in the cost of living because in a lot of these other states, the only reason why it is like New York, for example, one of the only
Yeah.
reasons why it is more is because the cost of living there is so high,
Yeah.
you know. So
I told you before, I have a friend from Massachusetts who said their living wage is 14.25, which is, more than double or almost double, I guess.
mhm,
But they their, cost of living is much higher too. Food and housing and everything is much more expensive there too.
mhm,
Places like California as well. Their cost of living is high, 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 high as well.
mhm,
So even though they do have a higher minimum wage, I think,
mhm,
but it's still, not enough. Like you have to factor all of that in.
mhm,
So it's with all of this going on and you reading all the stories of people who are struggling working these minimum wage jobs, and a lot of people, and I learned about this with that program, Funds to Finish, that I did at school,
mhm,
where we talked about student loans. A lot of people are in the where they either they graduate college, but they're not able to get a job yet, or they need to continue school before they can get a job with that degree, and they have student loans from undergrad, or for whatever reason they were not able to finish college, so they have to drop out. Usually because a lot of times they're working and going to school, and it's hard to really be a good student when you're working all the time.
yes,
You
it's
know,
very difficult. It's
it's
very
hard to study
difficult.
and keep with the homework and stuff when you're tired from work. So a lot of times people drop out of college to just work and work in order to hopefully save money and maybe go back to
To
college at
go
some
to
point.
college in the first place, like,
And what usually ends up happening is they get crippled by the student loans because what we don't think about a lot of times is that even if you drop out of school, your student loans don't go anywhere. Like, they still need to be paid back to the government, you know? So, like, I listened to this NPR article where they were telling many stories of people who had to drop out of college, and their student loans almost, tanked them basically because they were working these minimum wage jobs trying to pay them off. And of course, after you drop out of school or leave school, the interest kicks back in and all this stuff. So, with those type of situations, um, that people are going through now, it's sort of vital that we raise the minimum wage. It's something we need to seriously be talking about, and it's a shame that it feels like our politicians right now, very few of them really seem, interested or worried about the minimum wage and
mhm,
interested in raising it. I know Bernie has been a big proponent of it
mhm.
from day one. And I know there was a lot of talk when Biden first was elected about raising it to $15 an hour, which I did some quick calculations because you and I talked about this before
Yeah, how do
recording.
you feel about $15 an hour? At least
You
here in the
know?
context of
Yeah.
NC.
See, initially I thought I was bussing, but it's just because our minimum wage is so low that $15 an hour would be more than twice what it is currently.
Yeah.
So at first I was like, okay, well that's something. But I just actually did the math here while we were talking,
Mhm.
and it brings you to 22.74 a month.
Okay.
So better
Yeah,
than
definitely
1,100.
better. You can definitely afford
Still
food,
not
I
really
guess.
much. Like you can't afford to really eat healthy. We talk about and we've heard of things, we have terms like food deserts now and things like that and food insecurity. People who are able to get food but they're not able to regularly access
Mhm.
healthy food. So you're probably not going to be eating from Whole Foods or anything like that and being able to purchase organic and all that type of stuff all the time,
Mhm.
right? With this. And if you have kids, this is not going to really be much of a difference,
Mhm.
but it would be better. Like, I feel like if that's the compromise, because I know the Democrats and Republicans, they all have to find a compromise. If $15 an hour is the compromise they can reach, if we better to do that than nothing. But personally, I feel like we probably need to get to 20 at
Mhm.
least before it's going to be like enough that you can live decently. You won't be fancy still, but I feel like it probably needs to be, but I don't think people's gonna let that happen.
No,
Probably needs
people
to
are
be
not gonna let that
nineteen
happen.
twenty for people to live just decently. A small house, small apartment. Like, it's not gonna be Bubba Bussin' either, but 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 will we get there? I don't know. I do not know.
That's why I need to vote. Please vote.
Yeah.
Because there are definitely a few people out there that, advocate for things like that,
Yeah.
So please get out there and vote for sure.
But, I've told you this, Eden, it just annoys me the way all these companies, ever since COVID started, have been raising their minimum wage because there's been a lot of talk about it for a while. And so I think they're
Mhm.
just trying to get good press by going ahead of the government and just going ahead and raising it to 15, 16, $17 an hour.
Mhm.
Just like a few months ago, I was seeing articles on LinkedIn praising Verizon for raising their minimum wage to $17 an hour,
Right.
and then the article was saying that AT&T had done it before them and had was thinking about doing it but hadn't done it yet. But they said most of their workers get at least $20 an hour. So it was just saying like, look, these companies are raising, and I told you before, I just feel like we give the companies too much praise for raising the minimum wage when really it's the bare minimum, no pun intended. But like, like we said, that 22.74 a month, I think is what my calculation came to.
Mhm.
And that's, your rent is, we said rent 1,000,
Yeah.
1,100 maybe, but it's going to be a lot more than that probably.
Right.
That's because you need renter's insurance and all these extra things.
Mhm.
You still got to pay car insurance. Car insurance is very expensive. Like,
Yes, because no,
$15 an
actually,
hour is not
it's not
that much better.
it's not
And
gonna
to
cut it
me,
for
it's
for
like,
that.
that's how bad, at least in North Carolina and other places too. Like, if the minimum wage is 14.25 in Massachusetts, for example, raising it to 15 is going to do nothing. But
Actually,
like,
yeah.
that's how bad it is that even doubling, because going from 7.25 to $15 is a little more than doubling, right?
Mhm.
Even doubling the minimum wage in North Carolina is still not enough. That if that doesn't scream to you how bad this situation is, nothing else is going to. It's so low that even doubling it is still not giving. But we should probably do it because it's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing. Baby steps. I think you bring up a very good point about the car insurance because obviously you have to find a way to get to and from work.
Yeah.
And again, we live in North Carolina, okay? And there are a lot of
Yeah.
places like North Carolina. Obviously, not everywhere is like this, but
You have to have
many,
a car.
many, many places in North Carolina, especially in the place where we are from, it's not walkable.
Yeah.
It's not walkable.
The
There's not good
transit is
public
not
transportation. Like it's
busing.
just not there. But you and this word busing. You need to stop it.
It just
But
works perfectly. But yeah,
yeah,
it's not
you
practical.
absolutely need a car. You
Yeah.
absolutely because it's the same people that don't make these cities walkable. The same people that don't make these cities walkable, and then now you can't get to work unless you have a car.
Yeah.
And that's just not it's not good for the environment and it's also not
Yeah.
it's not doable for everyone. It's
Yeah.
not doable for everyone.
And I would say most states probably are like that. I think there's only a few big cities and states that are
Have really
really
good transit
fully,
systems. Yeah.
transit ready. We have our New York, some parts of California, but it's not much,
Mhm.
really. You kind of do need a car, and Uber's expensive. You can't pay for ride sharing all the time.
Yeah. It doesn't
So
make
yeah, all
sense.
that factors in, your health insurance and stuff like that, because a lot of these employers cut corners by
That's
not
the
giving
thing.
people health
That's the
insurance. So
thing
you have to
because
go and buy it yourself,
you were
and we
just
don't have Medicare for all, so
you oh oh wow.
that's another can of worms. But
But yeah, no, but you're just talking about how $15 an hour, like at least like not maybe not $15 an hour, but raising the minimum wage is
yeah,
like the bare minimum. You see, that's the bare minimum because what really needs to change is the fact that many of these, minimum wage jobs, even if you're full time, don't really have benefits like that. And
yeah,
if they do, they're not good.
yeah,
And so, that's a problem because now these people are working, busting themselves for a company that is not even giving
doesn't
them
care
and
about
is
them.
not caring
Yeah,
about them. Like that's crazy, you
and
know?
we, you know what, we looked up the salary tax, right? But that's just the state tax. Federal taxes are also taken out of your salary, and I think there's also like at least when I had my internship last. summer, which I made more than minimum wage. I don't want to reveal what I made per se, but I made less than $15 an hour, but more than minimum wage. So somewhere in there, it was a two-digit number. But they also had a little part where they took away taxes for Medicare and Medicaid. So there's state taxes, there's federal taxes, and there may be other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something good to keep in mind. With like, I don't know, it's just because I understand that, on many accounts it's not as simple as just, oh, we're changing this, so, but I feel like in my mind, right, solutions can be made, you know, but a huge problem is that many of these people don't really care about their workers like that.
Yeah.
And so they're not willing to look for a solution that will really help their workers out, and
Yeah.
it's the same, like both minimum wage and benefits, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. Whoops.
Nope.
Um, so yes, there's that. What else? In my opinion, minimum wage workers are the backbone of our economy, and they need to be respected as
Yeah,
such. They need to be respected as such
it's
because
true.
the way
It's not even
certain
an opinion.
individuals,
You can just say that's
yeah,
fact.
they are
I
the
know
backbone of our
politicians
economy.
like to say small businesses are the backbone of our economy. They are
They
too,
are too,
but even small businesses cannot work without minimum wage people
right?
because,
Because, well, okay, you're talking about small businesses, but I'm
yeah,
talking about like big businesses here. Well,
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess both are
But
relevant.
I mean, like most small businesses rely on bigger businesses that employ minimum wage workers in one way or another. Like they need to
Right,
buy some product from them. They have
right.
to do something.
Right. And so these big businesses, that have small businesses that are relying on them or and whatnot, right? They get away with paying their employees a pittance,
Hmm.
with no benefits because they don't like to
Yes.
provide that, and these people that are looking probably desperate for work, because let's talk about that. They're desperate for work, you know, so they come and work. It's these minimum wage owners that are allowing these big businesses to stay exactly that, to stay big businesses. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And because people are like, oh, big businesses like carry our economy or whatever and whatnot, and that's a flawed statement. Well, who is actually doing the carrying
Yeah,
here?
because they don't pay any taxes. So what
They
are they carrying?
right. So,
So I think feel like we should talk about Amazon here.
yeah,
Because
Amazon.
Amazon is probably the most, I feel like the modern, in terms of modern companies, is the most egregious example of all of this.
Yeah, go
You
ahead.
know, I mean, we've all heard the horror stories of people who work for Amazon warehouses and stuff and shipping, um, fulfillment centers not being able to take breaks to pee and all these like crazy things that you read in, like, this is so inhumane, you know?
Yeah.
And, I remember when that came out specifically that like sometimes they're not allowed to have a pee break. And all Amazon did to respond, well, first they denied it. They're like,
Crazy.
we give our all our people breaks. And then they came out and said, you know what? Occasionally, yes, people because they're on a busy schedule, they may not be able to urinate. And then they like gave a half-grass sort of apology and then they kind of moved on, you
Hmm.
know? So, and that's kind of how Amazon, I feel like, has handled all of the criticisms of how they treat their um minimum wage workers, not their HQ employees, their engineers and stuff, but like their minimum wage workers, right?
Hmm.
I mean, are we going to talk about like are we getting to a part where we're going to talk about labor unions or should I just bring it up now?
Actually, bring it up now because here, let me just cut in really quickly. I think the experience that I was talking about, the
Mhm.
experience I had working in an environment that is synonymous with like a minimum wage job. It was a good experience for me, and I would go back because of how it put things in perspective. But I feel like I said, those are still good conditions. And this goes back to the whole respect thing,
Yeah.
especially people that are doing these things for, a living. You know, these companies, they don't respect them. They work in horrible conditions, are exposed to disease, exposed, and this is really all over the world as well. Not even just in the U.S., but many of these workers are exposed to horrible, horrible conditions, not non-livable conditions, you know, and that necessitates, the formation of labor unions. That and the
Yes.
fact that they're paid a pittance as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead with the labor
Yeah,
unions.
I want to bring them in because I did watch a few months ago a last week tonight John Oliver episode where they talked about labor unions and specifically Amazon because companies work very hard to prevent their employees from union organizing, and Amazon is one of the main girlies when it comes to doing that. Do you know companies pay like, there's a whole industry of companies that are anti labor unions, like, that's an industry.
Yes.
So they're companies that produce like video content that you would watch as a new employee during your onboarding,
Mhm.
and they help companies design programs and initiatives to, encourage people not to join unions. It's a whole multi-million dollar industry. It's
Mhm.
actually very crazy. But
Mhm.
what he talked about with Amazon is how Amazon actively works to make sure that they don't unionize. Now, the government has laws that do not allow companies to explicitly stop companies from letting unions or,
Unionizing.
employees
Mhm,
unionize.
unionizing,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if the workers persevere and somehow they're able to convince enough people to sign on, right? Because to be able to start a union, you have to get enough signatures and a group of people together to do it, right? So if they're able to work through all the, difficulties and do it, they can do it. But companies make it very, very hard. They usually have what they call union busting, which is they have some companies like Amazon have weekly or biweekly meetings where with the employees, where they tell them like, these are what labor unions are, here are the problems with labor unions. Basically, they try to scare them into not wanting labor unions. Um, and as a result, you know, you you see many cases where a lot of times people start to unionize maybe at like one Amazon location, for example, and then they'll start getting signatures and everything, and it's great and all. And then all of a sudden, people start dropping out because their Amazon manager told them that, hey, um, you shouldn't be unionizing. It's not a good thing. They will even tell them things like, unions will actually make your work harder. They'll take away your benefits actually in trying to standardize things for everybody. So, unfortunately, many times it's not that companies directly stop it, but they're really putting out propaganda, telling people unions are not good. And so it demotivates people. And it's because, if they were to when places unionize, they have to companies end up having to spend more money in order to fulfill the demands that a union makes, saying that, unions are unions can say things like, employees deserve paid time off and things like that. And so it costs the company more money. And so companies like Amazon would rather spend millions of dollars a year paying anti-union labor union companies to come in and make content for them and help them fight against labor unions than actually just provide more benefits for their employees. And it's really, really, really insane, honestly.
Yeah, so like you said, it's quite literally propaganda. It's quite literally scared tactics into rejecting ethical treatment,
Yeah.
which is crazy, you know. And it just sucks because a lot of those individuals feel like they don't have anywhere else to go,
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
and they're already being treated like trash. They're already working in horrible conditions. They're already getting paid a pittance, and they want to improve themselves, and they can't.
Mhm.
Or else they don't have anywhere else to go. And maybe you can get another job, but then a lot of these places are like that. So that's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like you said, the same big businesses get
Mhm.
upset when people try to unionize,
Unionize, walk out, do something to fight for
do
themselves.
something to fight for themselves exactly. And it's like, okay, well, it's almost like an economic dictatorship if you think about it, because all the dissent is being suppressed.
Yeah.
And that is definitely a characteristic of a dictatorship.
Yeah.
But no one really thinks about it that way because these are all everyone's favorite brands. Who doesn't like Amazon?
Right.
Who doesn't like McDonald's?
Like, we try to say, "Oh," like, I remember there was a movement a year or 2 ago that, like, "Let's not use Amazon anymore." But you can't. As soon as you need to buy something
Where do you go? Where do you go? Because our generation, we're not going to the mall
really,
anymore.
we don't wanna talk to people. That's our problem. And then we had COVID too. So you just go online. Prime, the power of Prime, like, Prime has a chokehold on the girlies. Myself included. Like, I mean, I don't have Prime, but Amazon in general has a chokehold. But, like, you click that button and then 2 days it's here, for Prime. And even if you don't have Prime, maybe 3 to 5 days, but usually it ends up coming quicker than you think.
Right.
Which I was reading something about how 2-day shipping with Prime, like, we don't really understand what goes into it, but the people are driving the truck and shipping the stuff, they are like pressure to get here on time.
The
They're put
pressure
under
to
a
get here on
lot
time,
of
that's
pressure.
crazy, and then it's like you're tired. You're driving late into the night, you're really tired.
Yeah.
What if you crash?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
It's wild. I also remember reading an article about an Amazon warehouse worker who basically tore something in her back from, lifting boxes and doing the stuff that you would do in an Amazon warehouse, you know, and Amazon was fighting so hard against giving her workers' compensation. I was literally beside myself. I'm like, it's very obvious that, like, you could get this type of injury from the type of work they do, but Amazon was trying to act like she got it from somewhere else. If I can find it, I'll link it, but I don't know if I can find the story. But if you look up, basically, as a female Amazon worker who I think she didn't break her back, but she hurt something in her spinal cord.
Mhm,
And Amazon was being funny about the workers' compensation. She had to get a lawyer. It was a whole thing.
mhm.
If you Google it, I'm sure it will come up. And I think it was a New York Times article. It was one of those main girls, either New York Times or Washington Post, one of those really credible ones that wrote about it. But there's so many stories like that with Amazon. And obviously we don't want to like keep harping on Amazon and make it seem like they're the only bad guy because there's a lot of bad guys. It's just Amazon, I feel like, has so many recent examples and some of the most egregious ones, but they all out here.
Right. Um, and so surrounding all this, there's like a stigma that like minimum wage workers are like lazy or like not able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps because, either they unionize and for some reason unionizing is being lazy. I don't know where that's come from, but still, um, you know, or okay, yeah, they didn't go to school, to get such and such degree and da, 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 da. Well, we already talked about this. We're going to talk about it again. How college is expensive, you know,
Especially today
especially
in
today.
2022.
So, it's not the minimum wage workers are not lazy. I don't think I need to
Yeah.
elaborate on that because for the
Yeah.
past 20 minutes we've been talking about how minimum wage workers are subject to very grueling circumstances. They're not lazy. They're doing all they can, you know. They're
We
literally doing
look
all they
down in
can.
America, we look down on people who are not college educated. And, we just forget sometimes that there are reasons.
There are
Sometimes people are not,
reasons.
most people are not, um, I was gonna say not college educated, but I was trying not to say two negatives. Most people do not attend college.
Hey.
Most people do not skip college, we'll say it that way, because they're lazy and they don't wanna go to college,
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors that play into it, especially the big one being it's very expensive.
It's very
And so
expensive.
when
And
we
then
act
sometimes
like minimum wage workers aren't people that have dreams, that want to work hard, to fulfill the American dream or whatever it be, just because they didn't get that education, it's not really fair.
Mhm.
They're working just as hard as what they're giving. Just because their job isn't as glamorous as a job that you get with a degree doesn't mean that they do not at least deserve the basic human rights and the basic, work suitable work conditions,
Right.
and suitable pay to live at least a decent life. Nobody's saying they need to be paid all the money in the world, like somebody with a degree per se, but they need to be able to live comfortably.
Yeah.
It's bare minimum in a country as developed as America. That's the thing because we always talk about how we are the America acts like, and in many ways because we have so much power, we are like we're the center of the world and everything revolves around us. Now, everything doesn't revolve around us, but I think sometimes we forget that America is a powerful force, and if we would take the lead on certain things and do certain things, the world would follow. We
Mm,
have a lot of influence,
that's debatable,
but I
but
feel like a lot of times, we are our government and leaders are they're not concerned about that.
mhm.
And so we need to do better in many instances. Even though in a lot of instances when it comes to work life in America, there are many countries out there that are doing better than us anyway. So it's not like they're really needing to learn from us.
That's true.
But we just claim that we're this first world country that's so advanced and we're the number one first world country. We put ourselves above Canada
Right.
and Australia and all these other, if you will, first world civilized places, right?
Oh, don't use the word
But
civilized. We can use first world, but we will not use civilized.
all of that, because I know that's what they're saying. I'm not saying what I think,
Okay, yeah.
but I'm saying like what a lot of people think, a lot of Americans think. Yet we still don't have a lot of things that really are very basic, especially to the other first world
That's
countries.
very
You
true.
know, like sometimes I feel like America is the most uncivilized civilized place, if that makes sense. Like because the way we think and the way we approach a lot of things that have to do with living, whether it's jobs, whether it's healthcare, the way we do a lot of things, it's very backwards.
Right.
And it's like it's kind of time that we as a country just wake up. And and I know there's some people who want to, but it can't be one person. Can't be one politician here, one politician there. It has to be a movement, unfortunately, and who knows when that will happen. But I guess all we can do is keep talking about it and make people aware, right?
Yeah. The only reason I said that's debatable is because sometimes America says nonsense and other countries do not want to follow that. But I do agree with everything else that you said. Like everything else that you said still stands, in my opinion. Because there's just I don't know. I feel like America with the resources that we have would allocate them in the right places, a lot more could be done. But unfortunately, that is not necessarily the country that we're living in.
Yeah. And of
So
course, I was talking about positive things. When America does
right,
positive things and people see that it works well,
right,
they
right.
will follow.
Yeah,
But
yeah, of
we
course.
don't use that influence for good a lot of times,
Right,
unfortunately.
right.
And some of the other girls have beat us. And that's
Yeah.
okay. That's great for them. But we need to do better, you know?
So I was going to talk about the dangers of working in certain minimum wage job places and things like that, but I think we covered that pretty well when talking about unionizing.
Let's list them out just so we're clear. Like
Yeah,
some of
absolutely.
the main ones, because I know we did kind of say things here and there, you
Yeah.
know. Like what are some common ones? Obviously, in depending on what type of job is,
Mm-hmm.
injury can be one,
Injury
you
can be
know.
one, yeah. Exposure to like, for instance,
Yes. Especially since
being
we were in a pandemic.
yeah, being in close contact with people that may be, you know what I mean? Like things like that are not entirely unheard of. Now there are like building codes and things like that, but I know like in the past, fire hazards. Did you hear about the triangle shirtwaist fire? I believe that's what
Mm-mm.
it was called. Anyways, I'm not
I
gonna go
don't
over that
know.
right now, but you should definitely look into it. And everyone who's listening should definitely um
What's give us a summary of it?
oh Lord.
Because we're not close to our time limit, so we can give like in summary say it happened.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So someone correct me if I'm wrong, but this was quite a while ago. I believe it was in the 1900s. So maybe not the most current thing, but it just goes to show that, these issues have existed for quite a long time. And I feel like we should have definitely progressed past them at this point, but unfortunately, here we are.
Yeah.
It
What did you say
was
it was called?
Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. It was a fire, I believe.
Okay. I can look
Um,
it up and fact check in real time.
yeah, so I don't remember exactly where this factory was, but it was like a textile manufacturing place, like where they made shirts and clothes and
In Manhattan. Okay, in 1911.
right. And essentially what happened is that I don't know, I guess it's pretty
There was a
self-explanatory.
fire.
There was a fire because the working conditions were very, very unsafe. Like the machinery and the materials around were, prone to breaking down and starting fires. And so it happened one day and it was very bad, very devastating.
Wow. 146 deaths.
Right. You
Either
know,
dying from the fire from fuel inhalation, or falling or jumping to death,
right.
which is that's very serious.
Trigger warning. We'll probably put that in the beginning
Okay.
for that. But, that did happen, over 100 years ago. But we're still dealing with unsafe working conditions. You're telling me at Amazon people can't go to pee? That's crazy.
Oh, wow. Because the doors to the stairwell, this is from a Wikipedia article. I'll link this because this I have in the description. Because the doors to the stairwells and exits were locked, a common practice at the time to prevent workers from taking unauthorized breaks and to reduce theft. Many of the workers could not escape from the burning building and jumped from the high window. So that's why a lot of people jumped. So that really is the same energy in terms of like the preventing workers from taking breaks and reducing that. Like that kind of control is still very present in companies like Amazon today. No, they're probably not locking people in rooms, but
No,
they
probably
have
not.
their ways of doing it. Like I remember from the Amazon articles I read that, they're on a timer.
Mhm,
Like when they clock in, there's like a timer and there's a certain amount of things they need to do in each time block. And it's like a computerized system or something that's doing it. And so if you've not met this target of, however many boxes you need to move or whatever they do,
mhm,
um, if the system flags you, and then
mhm,
if you get too many flags, you're going to be written up.
mhm.
So it's like they're feeling the pressure because, they're on a clock.
Right, right,
You have Amazon Prime and you expect your squid to get here in 2 days.
right. That doesn't like, I mean, I personally, I think about, at least in the context of, things that could be potentially dangerous. Sorry, things that could be potentially dangerous. I think about mining.
Mm,
Mining is historically and on a worldwide level has historically been a dangerous profession,
yeah,
because you can fall or the machinery can break, and they're not really paid that much. At least last time I checked. Maybe I'm wrong about in America, but I know that in other places, like there's a huge mining trade, like in like Congo, right? And a lot of people are not paid very well,
yeah,
and they're subject to really, really bad conditions. Like imagine going to work to try to provide for yourself and slash or your family, and you're risking your life every single day for hours at a time.
yeah.
You know,
It's it's truly unfathomable. Like if you haven't been in that situation, you can't really fully imagine it,
right?
you know?
Um, So yeah, at times working a minimum wage job can be dangerous, and I feel like no one should have to, this is a bare minimum, but no one should have to risk their life being at work.
Yes, for sure.
No one should have to risk their life in order to live,
Yeah.
you know?
Like, and it's crazy that's what our country, like, we're just okay with it, you
Yeah,
know?
we're so
As
okay
long
with
as our
that. And
Amazon
that's
stuff
just
comes in time, as long as our McDonald's food is ready to go and they don't mess it up, you know, we uh, we have ways to go as a society and as a nation, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Do we talk about the college minimum wage myth?
um yes and no.
Let's
Let's
just
just go
make
over
it
it.
blank
Yeah.
and clear. Yeah.
So let's debunk this myth that people can pay their way through college with a minimum wage job. That might have been the case 50, 40, maybe even 30 years ago, but in this 2022, it is
Mhm.
not a thing anymore.
And it
I'm
hasn't
sorry.
been that way for a
It
while,
has not been that
honestly.
way for
Like,
years now.
people who
That's
went to
crazy.
college in 2010 or 2000, I don't think they would have been able to do it either.
Yeah, like because okay, if you look at if you compare our minimum wage now to 40-ish years ago, maybe that's wrong. 40-ish years ago, right? And you look and you compare it to the like the way that college fees
Mhm.
have increased, right? Minimum wage has stayed more or less the same,
Yeah.
at least as an average.
Mhm.
Whereas college fees have increased exponentially in the
Yes.
past 40 or so
Yeah.
years.
And
So,
especially that we're at the, we're at this new stage in the pandemic where, we're kind of transitioning to this endemic sort of response.
right,
We have been in a pandemic for 2 years that has continued to raise prices of everything else. But wages have stayed basically, yes, some people double their thing to $15, but for the most part, wages continue to stay the same.
wages have continued to stay the
And
same.
inflation is going up. Now, of course, now we're seeing gas prices continue to shoot up. So it's
Mhm,
like even more exacerbated by the pandemic now.
right. Um, yeah. And I don't know, maybe Geraldine,
Right.
who graduated in 1974
Yes.
could have worked, and paid her way. Well,
Paid her way through her bachelor's. Yeah,
right,
very much.
but that's not really a thing, and especially if you're going to a 4-year university,
Mhm.
maybe you can make the argument that community colleges, it might be feasible,
Yeah.
but at a 4-year university, absolutely not.
Yes.
Absolutely not.
And most people who are going to a community college are going to have to go to a four-year university at some
At
point.
some point.
So you're
So,
not completely evading the money.
right, it's not really that much of a doable thing, and it's not people being lazy. I feel like certain Americans are like, oh, these days people just don't work hard enough, or these people of a certain group just don't work hard enough.
Mhm.
Well, even if they did, well, okay, I'm not even gonna say even if they did, because many people are working more than hard enough. Most people are. Actually, I
Yes.
don't know that for a fact, but I'm just saying, that's what I think,
Yeah.
right? Like, and it's not doing anything. I mean, it might be doing something. It might cover books. It might cover travel,
Yeah.
but
Just a cute little something, but that's all.
yeah. So,
I think the older generations that, we have around right now, which what are they? Like the baby boomers, right? Am I
Lord,
am I getting that right? I don't
yeah,
really know my generations well. But baby boomers, I want to say Gen X as well, I think. Our parents and grandparents' generations, they have this idea that because millennials and Gen Zers, who like us, are always well, you can call it complaining, you can call it, critiquing the way things are in this country and how it should be better. A lot of them feel like it's because we don't want to work hard. Because back then, when there were problems, people just put their head down and dealt with it. You know what I mean? Like people like
Yeah.
our own parents.
Yeah.
It's not like it was any easier for them per se, even if they were able to pay their way through college theoretically. But in, instead of thinking about how can we make this better, their mindset was, we're just gonna work hard, do what we have to do, and find a way through it. You see, and that's very much the mindset of the old generation. But I feel like the younger generations now, we're still working hard and making our way through it, but we're not sitting there and being like, okay, this it is what it is. You know,
No,
that's
yeah,
the
we're
difference
past
between
that.
our generations. We're not just gonna sit here and be like, it is what it is. We're gonna be like, how can we come up with a better solution? You know, change needs to happen, and that's what's important. You know, and it's good that young people are able to take the lead on that because how are things going to get better if we somebody doesn't come out and say this is not good. We need visionaries, you know. So I feel like that is where it stems from when people are like, oh, people don't want to work hard, da, 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 da. It stems from because they don't understand why can't you just shut up and do the work.
Mhm.
Why do you have to be like, oh, it could be better? Why do you have to think about better when it's not going to get better? But it's like maybe if we think about better, it
It
could get
will get
better.
better.
That's the first
See,
step.
look, this is the way I see it, right? Right? Racism, for example, I love talking about. Well, no, I don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yes.
Racism, right? It may never go away. Okay, and that's a realization that you have to come to. Like, I'm not saying that there's like, I'm not saying, like, I'm
That it's
saying,
impossible.
yeah, but what I'm
But
saying is, it's going to be very, very difficult, and it might not even be in our lifetimes. Okay, but 50 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to go to the school that I'm attending today
yeah.
if I was black living in America. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like the same thing goes for something like this.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, oh, you just have to accept it. Well, not necessarily, because if these people, if certain, civil rights individuals had just accepted their treatment and gone, we wouldn't be seeing the examples of black excellence that we are seeing now. I mean, we might have been seeing like some of them, but it might not have been as accessible,
Yeah.
you
We
know.
would have seen less people.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think the same thing goes here.
Yeah.
Hopefully, hopefully that's something that we can continue to perpetrate,
Yeah. Yeah.
that type of sentiment.
Mhm.
And I think on the note of visionaries, that kind of leads us into the question of like, how do we fix this?
Yes.
Like, how do we make some type of change?
Yeah. Especially for young people like ourselves, maybe like yourself listening who, you're thinking about this problem, because it's gonna not just affect you and your lifetime, it's gonna affect your children, your children's children. So you're thinking, what can we do to make America a better place to live and make it a place that can be more affordable and livable for people
Hmm.
working with the minimum wage?
Hmm. For me, the first thing is vote. If you are of voting age, please vote, 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 vote,
So
because
important.
so important.
Yes.
Um,
And we have to learn to take our local elections more seriously.
yes, local elections are more important than national elections.
Everybody gets so excited about the national elections because of the
Yeah.
president. It's a
Yeah.
big deal, and the main senators and
Yeah,
stuff. But
everyone goes and votes there, but that's not necessarily where the biggest difference is made.
yeah,
Um, the presidents, well, at least if someone's running for a presidency,
hmm,
they might talk a big game. Oh, we're gonna
yeah,
make this happen. We're gonna make this happen. But you have to realize that
the president does not have all the
they
power.
don't have all the power. Checks and balances is
Yes,
still very much a thing.
and it's up
And
to state senators
right,
and
it's
state
up to
representatives in the House to like do what we want essentially.
exactly, exactly. And so, you know, everything that they promise, they're not necessarily able to deliver. And
Yes,
even some things that they promise, they're gonna break them regardless because a lot of these politicians are liars
yes,
inherently. Sorry. Um, but when it comes to like the state and your city and district levels, those types of elections are very important because those ones hit a lot closer to home.
yes,
If you want to see tangible change in your community, in the lives of your neighbors, you need to pay attention to local elections because
yeah.
that's where a lot of these changes are actually held. Not that you shouldn't vote in, because the way this thing, they take one thing that you say and they'll twist
That's
it.
twisted. Yeah.
Right. So I'm not gonna let y'all do that. Not that the national ones and the federal ones are not important, but
They
no one
are. They
pays
are.
attention.
Yeah.
They are very important, but no one pays attention to these local elections
So
and
many of the laws that you abide by as a citizen and wherever you live
our state
are
laws.
actually state laws.
Yeah.
There are so many laws that do not fall under the federal purview.
Right.
And sometimes people don't realize that. And there's so many laws that there's not a federal standard. So different states have different laws. And that's because people voted the people in, the state representatives and senators in, that put in the laws that they wanted. So
Hmm.
it's something we have to remember. That's a problem in America too, that we have so many problems, and a lot of problems are handled at the state level. And so it's not easy for President Biden or whoever the president is to just write something. It's not that he can't, but it's not just like that for him to write something and be like, okay, everybody do this now.
Mhm.
Because some things have been managed at the state level for so long,
Mhm.
it's going to take a sweeping overhaul. So, yeah, all this is to say, please vote, vote, vote. And we have to all do better about researching
Yeah.
and learning about our local candidates and what they stand for, so that we can vote for the ones who are going to um, help with the issues that are important to us.
Mhm.
So voting is important, especially, and obviously we have to raise the minimum wage. That's the other big thing.
We've got
We
to.
have to.
We've got to educate yourself about the exploitation of minimum wage workers, but
Mhm.
don't only stop there. Help also raise awareness,
Yes.
and then if you
And
don't
learn
even stop
about
there, go
mhm.
to protest if you can, you know?
And learn about which politicians, which candidates support minimum wage, and what stipulations they have, especially when it comes presidential time,
Yeah.
because some of this may have to happen for the presidential level. I know there's been a ongoing debate with the Biden administration about a lot of Democrats right now feel like President Biden should be using his executive powers to just write things into law,
But you see,
you know,
that's not
but
how those
that's
work.
not the way the government
That's not how
works.
those work.
But there's a lot of people, AOC is one of them, who just feel like we can't wait to compromise Republicans or the other side, whoever the, you know, opposition is, because they're not going to have reasonable demands. And personally, I understand where she's coming from, but it's not something that he can use for everything. He has
Yeah.
to be very careful how he uses it.
And I feel like even if we could, like, I think sometimes we kind of put him on a pedestal. Sometimes some of these
Yeah.
things he wouldn't even do. Let's
Well,
keep it
yeah, because he
100.
has to think about, what's going to get him reelected, and
Yeah.
what's going to serve him best too. And that may not always be the best interest of the people, but
Yeah.
that is the key. So that's why supporting your local people, doing those local elections are important, because right now things like minimum wage and student loans, those things have been paused because, the Democrats and Republicans do not agree on it. And Biden does not want to just sign it into law executively, because that's not how our government is supposed to work.
That's not how it's supposed to
It
work. And
becomes dictatorship.
you can't really do executive orders, sign things into law via executive orders though.
Yeah.
Like
It's
those are
just,
things that apply to the
it's like a
government.
temporary band-aid.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
We got to vote, vote, vote. That's what we have to do, people.
yeah, and
Continue
yes,
to read and educate yourself about it too, for sure.
yes, our voting system is flawed, but we need to take any opportunity that we can get because at the end of the day, it is supposed to be our voice.
Yeah.
And if you don't take it, then if we don't take it, then we are responsible,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, this has been a good conversation. I enjoyed it, and I think it was one that really needs to be had. That's why we started this podcast. Time to talk about these things. So, thank you all for listening, for tuning in. We hope you learned something. I know I learned things
I did too.
from talking to you. You learn things just from talking to one another, see different aspects and things. So, that's why we started this. So, hopefully, it was beneficial and an educational experience for y'all, but hopefully, you enjoyed it too. Hopefully, there's some entertainment value here. Um, but yes, I'm going to put that one Wikipedia article in the description if you want to read more about that fire in 1911. Our social media links are in the bio as well. And we are continuing to encourage you all that we did an unpopular opinions episode for episode 5, and we're going to do another one at some point. So if you have any unpopular opinions, feel free to leave them in the to leave a voice note on an Anchor page or text note. That's the main way.
Mhm.
But follow us on social media, especially on Instagram, because we'll put up stories for people to type in their unpopular opinions as well on Instagram. So follow us on social media. The links are down there. I don't know if we ever announced it on here, but we've officially made social media channels for the podcast now, as well as our own personal ones. So check those out. They're all down there. But yeah, were there any final thoughts
I think that's it for
that you
me.
had?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you all for listening. We love you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.